You're listening to the Adventurous Reinvention podcast. I'm Allison Boyle, aka She Dreams of Alpine, and this is the show that's dedicated to all the adventurous spirits out there who have either been transformed by the outdoors or are interested in what it looks like to step into a new, adventurous, and courageous kind of identity in their life. It doesn't matter what your background is in the outdoors, what age you're starting at, or where you grew up. If you're curious about the outdoors and using adventure as a way to reinvent yourself, you're in the right place. I'll be sharing all kinds of personal adventure stories, lessons I've learned from the mountains, teaching what I know about the outdoors and leadership, and interviewing some amazing adventurous women all along the way. I've been coaching women on becoming safe, confident, and self-sufficient backpackers and leaders of their own adventurous lives since 2018, and I know exactly what big fears and self-doubts can pop up along the way. I have so much to share with you, so let's dive in. Hello, my friends, and welcome back to the Adventurous Reinvention podcast. Now, today's episode is a conversation with my client, Marissa, who joined us inside of the Adventurous Reinvention Experience in 2025. So when she came into ARE, she was in that really relatable kind of in-between season. She felt like her life was really good on paper. She had that solid career. She was on a stable path. She was doing all the right things. But I think underneath all of that, there was this like growing sense of, wait, is this what I want the next 30 years to look like? And really just sitting with that. And I can totally relate because I had one of those moments myself when I was her age in particular too. But I think we can have it at any moment in our life when we kind of are trying to get a sense of, do we want to keep doing the same thing, or we're curious about new things, or we're just in a season of exploring what that is. So for her, what I love about her story is that she took a leap of faith to explore that more. Like she had that curiosity and she was like, I'm going to find out what's underneath that. And she came into our program as a self-proclaimed overthinker, which I know so many of us can relate to, and she wasn't totally sure of what she wanted next, but she knew that she wanted to feel more intentional, more alive in her life, and she wanted to feel even more in control and in the driver's seat. So through the Adventurous Reinvention Experience, between our coaching calls, the skill building that we do all summer, and our time in the mountains together as a group, she started to open up and a whole new way and to a whole new realm of possibilities for herself, including something really fun that is happening this summer. So about a year from when she was in the program. And we talk all about that inside of this episode. So if you've been feeling that pull, subtle or loudly, for something more, but you keep telling yourself that you don't have enough clarity around it yet, or you're overthinking your next move, this episode is going to feel like sitting down with a very honest, very real version of what that process looks like and what it looks like to move through it. So I think you're going to really enjoy it. Now, before we dive in, if you are curious to learn more about our once-a-year program called the Adventurous Reinvention Experience, you can go to shedreamsofalpine.com/ARE. Now, at the time of recording this little intro, we have officially filled our 2026 program, but you can join the waitlist, and that puts you first in line for our future programs, and you can learn all about what's included. It's a very unique experience. It goes so much further beyond just being a guided in-person backpacking trip. We do so much work together in that summer. So yeah, and Marissa's story is going to share a whole lot about that, especially the reinvention side of the coaching, because that's a big part of our experience together. So I hope you enjoy, and let's dive in. All right. Welcome, Marissa. I'm so excited to have you here on the Adventurous Reinvention podcast. Thank you so much for being here. I did share a quick introduction to you before we started recording, but I'd love for you to maybe tell our listeners who you are, what you do, and just say hello.
Hey, Allison, thanks for having me. And hello to all the listeners. My name is Marissa, and I'd like to call myself an avid adventurer from good old Indiana. Besides that, some people classify me as a crazy cat lady, which is true.
Wait, you should tell
Uh,
everyone how many cats you do have at the moment.
uh, we are now at seven. I
Yes.
rescued a kitten during a snowstorm this past February, so the number rose. And then besides that, I'm also a follower of Jesus, so my faith plays a role in my being. And then my day job is a pavement research engineer, which will probably follow through with some of my answers and the way my mind works. So,
I
yeah.
love it. Amazing. It's actually funny because Marissa and I literally just saw each other. She joined us on our women's Joshua Tree climbing retreat just literally a week and a half ago, or even less than that ago. And it's been fun getting to spend so much time together this month since we haven't seen each other since the last Adventurous Reinvention Experience. But that is not what this episode is particularly about, the climbing retreat. But let's back up a little bit. You first came into She Dreams of Alpine, our world. I think it was at one of our solo adventure summits, which is like a free summit we have been hosting the last few years. And then you had been to some of our other free events before deciding to join us in our 2025 Adventurous Reinvention Experience. So I'd love to get some background. Like when you first enter our world, did you already see yourself, like thinking back to that solo summit timeframe, did you see yourself as somebody who is adventurous outdoorsy, or was that identity still forming for you?
Yeah, I'd say the identity had started to maybe settle a little bit. I was lucky enough in like college to be able to study abroad for a semester, and that kind of started to unlock my like adventurous side, and then also just like my Swedish heritage kind of gave me a little bit more of a world perspective to begin with. So I'd say the adventurous side was a bit more settled, but I think She Dreams of Alpine really gave me the tools to feel more like competent in the outdoor space. And
Yeah.
that just, I think, brought the kind of the identities that had started to settle and form more to like the forefront and also like just like
Bringing
faith in
momentum on
myself.
them.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. And so when you joined us in the Adventurous Reinvention Experience in 2025, can you maybe describe a little bit like what season of life you were in? Maybe like what were some of the themes and feelings like showing up in your life at the time that kind of like drew you to this particular program?
Yeah, so for some background, I'm in my late 20s, so I'm kind of reached the stage of like no longer a fresh college graduate. I've been in my career for like 6+ years now, and it was kind of starting to like reach almost like a itchiness or like a anticipation of like kind of like what's out there and what's next, except
Yeah.
for I didn't really know how to like figure that out because it just seemed like very like colossal and just kind of I was at a point where I wanted to kind of hone in on what direction I wanted to take my life and essentially make sure like I can live it intentionally and to where I'm running my life and life
Yeah.
isn't running me and just like also like addressing like the kind of the new values that I had reached at that stage of life, which I know we'll probably get into this later, but like I did not grow up backpacking. That wasn't a
Yeah.
thing. And I really didn't even step into like the outdoors like space and develop the love of hiking till my like college time. So it's kind of was like at the point where the usual like milestones of life had been reached. And it was
Yeah.
just kind of like, what's next? But that what next was also very overwhelming.
Right. That's actually, it's so interesting. There's a lot of parallels in like what you're saying and kind of some themes that I saw like in my 20s when I was going through all that, like graduated, got the degree, was working the job. I got into the outdoors like after college for me. But I remember being in my late 20s navigating that sort of like I want to feel a little bit more intentional and aligned. Or I remember having this feeling, I don't know if it's the same for you, Marissa, but I remember having this feeling of like, am I going to do this for the next 30 years? Because I think I had been working in my job for about 6 or 7 years at that point. That question led me to end up starting She Dreams of Alpine, which is like a whole nother avenue. But it feels like you were like looking at things in a similar light. Like, tell me if I'm wrong, but it seemed like something like similar like that.
Yeah, definitely. It was very much like kind of, yeah, just like looking at my life and not being like dissatisfied with what I had
Yes.
been done, but just like looking towards the future, um, and knowing just like I before I decided to like place down roots fully in Indiana,
Right.
it's like, is that even something I want to do long term? Like,
Yeah.
what are the possibilities and
Yes.
what kind of like how I
Just
want
being
my
even
life to
willing to
look in the future. Yeah,
yeah,
just
just
like
even being willing to explore it is like really useful and powerful. Um, Yeah, that's so interesting. So, okay, great. And then you talked a little bit about this, but you mentioned your backpacking experience. I'd love to get more background on your backpacking experience too. What was that like? I think I remember you mentioning you had done you joined our intermediate trip, so you had some, it's not like a pre, for people listening, you don't have to have backpacking experience to join our intermediate, but most people that do have some prior backpacking experience or at least are very comfortable with being uncomfortable and like training and situations like that. So maybe give us some experience or background on your backpacking experience.
yeah. So fun time. My first trip was actually in October 2020 because
Oh, wow.
backpacking was
Yeah.
one of the things you could get out to do.
Yeah.
And it was my friend and I, she had gone on like a guided group trip through her school. I was just really getting big into hiking at that time. And it was like,
Yeah.
all right, like backpacking's the next step. And it was very much like self-taught, checking like REI's like backpacking checklist.
Yeah.
Our first trip we chose was in like the Manistee National Forest in Michigan, did a little section on like the North Country Trail, and it
Very cool.
ended up being like 3 days, 2 nights. Definitely a learn by day two, one of my feet, well, I think both of my feet were covered in blisters. So
Yeah.
uh, a fun
Some
backpacking
things,
horror story
yeah.
is,
You have to learn the hard way sometimes. Oh, wait. Are you
yeah,
going to tell the story I think you were going to tell?
I don't
Oh,
know if
no,
it's
that's a
this one.
different one. That's a
Yeah.
different one.
But this one's also heavily entertaining.
Okay.
So the last day, I'll make it pretty quick, but we had like a 13-mile hike back to the car because we did it out and back, and my feet were fried at this point. I also did not have like moleskin or really anything to take care of the said feet. So at that point, it was more comfortable to do like a lovely like trot or jog than
Mm.
just kind of the casual, normal hiking,
That's so
walking.
interesting.
And my poor friend was trying to distract me, and at that time, rapped the entirety of the Hamilton soundtrack because that was
Oh,
the big thing at
wow.
that time.
The
So,
true friend.
yeah, so I just have this vision of us still just like kind of trotting through the woods, these two girls, just like if anyone had been watching, they would have been like, what the heck?
What is
But I think
happening?
that's half of the fun with backpacking. And then from there, made it on some more trips, changed shoes, and definitely got a little more savvy with what I had packed and stuff. But
Yeah.
pretty much that I think was the longest trip. The rest of them were more like two
Like 2 nights,
days.
3 days.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, cool. And so like you had some shorter weekend adventures than it sounds like, which is actually like how I started too. I did a bunch of those before I got into longer trips, which I think is great because you're like building your skills over time. But I know another aspect of this program that you were interested in is enhancing some of your outdoor skills. So Do you remember like what you were most interested in kind of gaining from the outdoor mentorship kind of aspect of the adventurous reinvention experience?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest pieces, honestly, was just like the trip planning itself. So I
Yeah,
know you go really in depth with like the document that like essentially plans the route, looks at like temperature, looks at weather, just
yeah,
even like safety plans in place, and just kind of I think honing that initial piece in was super nice. And then the other part was just like more like GPS navigation stuff. Because previously, since I had pretty much done like out and back trails, not
yeah.
there weren't like a lot of offshoots. So kind of learning how to use like the Gaia
Yes.
GPS. And then also just I'd say kind of like narrowing down, like also hearing what people actually use, like gear wise
Yeah.
and stuff, and like the pack shakedowns.
Yeah,
Kind
that's
of, I think,
super useful to like see other people's gear setup, especially somebody, well, we're gonna get into this, but considering some bigger trips. But yeah, it's so useful to kind of see like what your gear setup is, compare it to other ladies, and maybe even hone what you have.
yeah. And another thing I just thought of that I'll add to is also just like the intentionality of like how to train for the hike, like especially
Yeah.
the one we did for ARE, like having a lot more elevation in it. And therefore, like spending, unfortunately for me in Indiana, spending a lot more time on like the treadmill and stuff. But it
Yeah.
also made it to where like the first day, I remember being a bit like worried because that was, I think, would be our biggest elevation day,
Yeah, it
just
was like
getting up.
2,000 or 2,500 feet of gain or
Yeah,
something. Yeah.
exactly. Kind of getting up into the mountains and ended up like feeling great that day. And I think part
Yeah.
of that was just because of the intentionality of the training. And it
Yeah.
wasn't just like oh shoot, I have backpacking trip the next week. Hope my legs
Yeah.
work or something.
Actually,
So
that's such a good thing. I even think about that because that's a common like concern for people, especially like in different areas of the US, especially if they don't have access to trails nearby, which it sounds like maybe you didn't and you were doing more and you're really busy. So you're like doing more treadmill like training. Did you feel like that prepared you? Did you feel ready to take on like the elevation gain with that kind of training? Or what did you do for your elevation gain training?
yeah, so mainly for the elevation training, it was treadmill. I have a local state park,
Yeah,
but there isn't a ton of elevation changes throughout it. I would try and get in like more of our like long mileage days, hiking outside.
yeah,
Especially the other thing was working on like the pack increments and stuff. I don't think I technically ever hiked with the full pack weight, but I was
yeah.
pretty confident also just upon like
You had
doing
done some
strength
trips before,
training and
yeah.
other, yeah. So I wasn't like necessarily concerned about the weight, but just getting in those like longer mileage and working up increments of like a 5 mile hike, a 9 mile hike,
Yeah.
11 mile, however like many miles we got up to. And then yeah, definitely next to that, I would try and do loops to where I'd be either going up and down the little piece of elevation there just to enhance the longer hike a little bit, or maybe hit more stairs.
That's so
So I
great.
definitely got the uphill and downhill elevation
Nice.
training. But then the
You got to
other
get
key,
creative sometimes when you live in these places. I
yeah,
remember my sister-in-law came on one of the trips and she lives in Houston and it's like the same. It's very flat where she lives. And so she mostly did like during the weekdays she would get her big elevation gain training, but I remember she told me she was like I have this one loop in where I live where you get 150 feet of gain. She's like I've
yeah,
mapped it. And I was like it counts. Just add it to the tracking spreadsheet. So, that's great. Another aspect of that actually is altitude. And so I think that might be useful for people to hear about. Like you had not done a high altitude trip before, like in the mountains, higher in the mountains. Is that correct?
correct,
Okay.
yes.
Um,
And that was one of the things I was probably one of my biggest concerns going
yeah.
into it, just because I wasn't sure how my body would react. And then coming from sea level in Indiana, and
Yeah.
that's where it was useful. I tried to set myself up for success,
You
and
really did. That's what I was gonna say. You and a group of women, like everyone in that group did really well at acclimating.
yes, and that I can say probably is partially because, yeah, as Allison alluded to, me and two others from the coaching went together early, bopped around Yosemite, and I remember, like, I think day two of that, I had a little bit of a headache.
Yeah.
And then, but by the time I think it would have been what, either day three or four of being roughly in at least a lot higher elevation than I was used to, I think that really set me up well for the trip because then I don't remember feeling much of like altitude on the trip. I think one of the days I noticed I felt like just a little like slower, but that also wasn't a bad thing because it
Yeah.
also allowed me time to like enjoy the views, talk to the people like around me and stuff. So
Yeah.
I wouldn't look at like even if you're maybe not performing at like your top 100%, like I
Yeah.
wouldn't let that like stop someone because there's a lot to do. Like you can still like push through, but also enjoy the moment where you're at because usually someone's right there with you.
Yeah, it almost gives you a chance to like catch up with a different section of our group because Kelly and I were talking on this on a different episode where it's like different paces and you can kind of like get in line with where you're feeling at during the day. But I just want to highlight like I think that's such a smart thing. I mean, we always build in a day of acclimation for our clients like before we go into the mountains because it's so important for feeling not so bad as you climb a little bit higher. And like our group I want to say most nights we were camping between around 10 to 11, probably 1,000 feet.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, and our base camp originally, like at the trailhead, was probably around 9,000 in Mammoth. So that's where everyone kind of met in. But it's so smart, like if you're concerned or have extra concerns around altitude, to even just give yourself like another day or two, like you guys did, and go explore the cool areas in the Eastern Sierras. Was that your first time in Yosemite?
It was, yes.
Nice.
And what made it super special, Carrie, who was one of the girls, that was one of her favorite spots. So through this whole experience, I kind of got my own like personal like tour guide who shout out to her, she rocked and like showed me and Julia like the best trails and stuff. So it was
Amazing.
just like something I would have never guessed from the start of it.
Yeah, I loved it. And you guys kind of like showed up to our like kind of meetup day with everyone. And I was like, oh, these people are already like best friends. Like
Yeah,
they just spent a couple of
exactly.
days. So recommend that. And y'all just, how did y'all coordinate that? You guys just literally coordinated it in the Slack group for our program.
Yeah, I had put it out in the group that I was interested in flying out early. I
Yeah.
saw that Yosemite was close to the area, and I was like, either way, I really want to go to Yosemite, but if anyone would love to join me, you're more than welcome to. And I
I
was lucky
love
enough
that.
to get some takers on that. So, kind of
Yeah.
again, what putting yourself out there and suggesting an
Yeah.
idea can lead to.
Yes. I love that. Well, one other thing that stood out to me when you joined the Adventurous Reinvention Experience was that you were also when we had I remember we had like a one-on-one call before you officially joined, and you were really excited about the life coaching aspect of the program. I have written down like from one of your intake forms when you joined, as you said, like I've been feeling the itch to shake things up in my life, but I find thinking about the future and doing my own self-reflection to be a little overwhelming and slightly terrifying, which you alluded to earlier. So maybe what made this feel so intimidating to you at the time?
Uh, the easy answer and the quick answer, I'd say, is all the mind drama. As I mentioned earlier, especially with being like a research engineer as my
Yeah.
background, my mind likes to
Are
think
you
through
an
everything.
overthinker, Marissa?
Maybe a little bit overthinker paired with like
Join the club.
overachiever, and yeah, that's me. Uh, so it was very much, yeah, the mind drama. And then just like, there's so many unknowns, or as I learned to look at them, possibilities.
Yeah.
And I think it was just like not knowing like even where to start or like, and also like along with that, like how to branch out from like the comfortable, like stable zone, especially when
Yeah.
delving into like the unknown. And it just felt like I think what drew me to the program was getting like the structured coaching that just like kind of one, it also by signing up, I paid to use the word force, but it like gave me
Right.
accountability to show up for
I
myself
do
and
that so often. I'm like, I say I want this and I'll like join a program because I'm like, okay, I'm invested and I want to show up for my investment is kind of like my mentality a lot of times. Yeah.
exactly. And just like setting aside then like the time on the calendar, because I'm sure just about anyone can relate to the fact that it's like there's so many other things that get taken up in the day and
Yeah.
leaving that time for like self-reflection, especially self-reflection that you're not even sure where to start. It's just like,
Yeah.
well, that gets scooted to the side.
Yeah, definitely. I can totally relate to that. Um, so how did the group coaching environment end up helping you navigate that uncertainty of like processing the present and dreaming about the future? Maybe you can expand a little bit about like what that felt like for you or what that process was like for you.
Yeah. So first, I'd like to say I really liked how you broke down the coaching experience into the three different parts. The first part being more like all about kind of like identity
Good
and
stuff.
learning about like where we are now, what kind of built like us there. Something that kind of stood out was just like the lens from which we view the world and
Yeah.
also like understanding what kind of boundaries that might be in place that we don't even realize. And then also just like the roles that are both like assigned, chosen, accepted, whatever
Yeah.
you want to use. And I think like really starting with the identity piece and like some of like I like the specific questions you asked during the coaching. And I think the other thing that helped with like even it being group coaching is hearing about where everyone else is coming from. Because I feel like that also like sometimes with the unknown and the mind drama, it almost like freezes your mind. So then
Yeah.
starting to hear like other people's experiences and stuff, it kind of like breaks the wall in my mind to where I can then be like,
Yeah.
oh, yeah, I hadn't like thought about it this way, but
Or
like,
like she has a totally different thought about that than I do. Like,
yeah,
why is that? Like, that's so interesting. I think that all the time. I'm just like, wow, what a fascinating like lens to have on this situation that I have a totally different lens of.
exactly. And then just like another thing that really stood out, and more specifically in terms of tools, was like the CT like circumstance, thought, feeling, action, results.
Yeah.
Again, I like processes. So that
Yeah.
gave me a process to like look at a circumstance and then like what my initial thoughts were around it. So even with like the coaching was like my circumstance going in was like, well, I really hope this coaching is going to help me because I like the overwhelm is all there. And my
Yeah.
thought was just like, I don't even know where to start.
Yeah.
My feeling was just like overwhelm. And then
Yeah.
instead of just letting the actions and results be like, stay in the overwhelm, don't move anything. It's
Yeah.
like then choosing to like sign up for the coaching and kind of being guided through that. But just that like method and how we can apply it to pretty much anything and just like
Yeah.
break down the situation, but it also like it allows for the emotions and feelings that do come up, but it
Yeah.
also doesn't let them bury the actions or the results. Like it doesn't,
It
it
lets you
allows
be
you
like
to,
a, may take a moment and like be an observer of your own mind from a place of like non-judgment. It's like, let's just
exactly.
look at this. Let's just like play around with this. What's happening here? Like, what's going on in my brain right now? Yeah, it's a useful tool.
And then, so like kind of moving like out of the identity stage, which was all part one, and
Yeah.
so much more even to for all the listeners to uncover there.
Yeah.
Like part two was probably the other big part that stood out to me, and that's kind of like forming your realm of possibilities.
Yeah.
And kind of the mind-blowing aspect for me here was you had told us to just kind of start like listing ideas and not like necessarily again processing the ideas like
Not policing them either, or
yeah,
like
not
just
policing
judging them.
them and like stopping them before they begin, but just like get thoughts on like literally I was on my phone app, like the notes app, and just like
Yeah.
jotting down random things like I don't know, interest in New Zealand or I don't know, dog sitting or like it doesn't matter
Yeah. Random.
what the list is, but the interesting part was just how much at first, like it was just like I don't even know how to like what is my realm of possibility? Like what are the possibilities? And
Yeah.
then once you kind of put one down on the list, it then grew to two and then four. And then it really just like unlocked like the creative aspect where I think most people are normally like with the, if your first idea, you try and plan it from start to finish and you fail it immediately where, and then it's like, you don't know. I think one of the other things that you said that stood out was like, even by dreaming of these different possibilities, that can unlock other dreams that you wouldn't have even possibly reached until just like stepping into or
Following a
thinking
thread or
about it. Yeah,
something. Yeah.
following a thread.
Yeah.
And and it was
It's
just like, yeah,
It's like almost like a lens in itself. It's like what you're saying was just reminding me. It's like by doing that process and like not a lot of times, like our knee-jerk reaction is just to be like, oh, that's not reasonable. But if we take that away and just let ourselves like dream where something comes up that's like an interesting idea and we don't have to take action on it yet, but we're not like saying no either, you're almost like putting this lens of like, all kinds of possibilities are around me versus I think our normal like human reaction is a lens of limitation. Like, no, I can't do this because X. I can't do this because Y, or that's not reasonable, or this person wouldn't like it, or this person, we just like stop ourselves. And so we just block like ideas and curiosity from coming to us. Yeah.
exactly. And that's where I think just like the part two of the training really just allowed for that creativity to expand so much.
Yeah.
And the again, that probably just blew my mind, even realizing like the different ideas that I could come up with was really freeing. And it makes sense based upon what we were just saying about the limitations. Um, and then that kind of like brings us into like the third part of the program, which is how to take the
Stepping
realm
into
of
it.
possibilities and make it into a reality. And I think navigating, and you timed it perfectly for our trip because we had just finished essentially the part two, like realm of possibilities, and then we're going on this backpacking trip. So that backpacking trip, like, was a possibility. Like it
Yeah.
just
It
like
opens
stepping
up
in,
so much
yeah,
for people, I think, too. Yeah.
exactly. And just like even getting to experience and like hearing like the hopes and dreams of others on the trail and stuff. And then speaking more on like the coaching thread, like then being able to like really hone in on like how to make that like possibility a reality and just all like the different methods, thought processes, etc. that you went
Yeah.
through, I think really helped like tie up that aspect because it can be like a lot of times
I
it's
have
like
all
great
these
you
ideas. Great. Now I'm overwhelmed again.
yeah, and it's like
Yeah.
okay and back to like daily life and you kind of
Yeah.
and might lose like the intentionality, especially for me that I was originally seeking because
Yeah.
it's like if you don't have like any idea on what the next step might be, it's just like, well, back to the
Yeah.
grind.
Yeah,
So,
I mean that is honestly the hardest part, like stepping into any ideas or new threads or like changing it up in your life. That is the hardest part of the journey. Um, even for me, like so it's nice to have structure around it, but it's not an easy thing to do, like getting and shaking out of your routine and everything. Yeah, totally. Did you have anything else to say about that, or I cut you
um,
off? I don't know if I.
no, you really didn't cut me off. I'll just say there's like uh, again, for the listeners, I can say during every single coaching call, I don't know if Allison was watching me at all, but I was like taking notes. Like we got awesome journals, and that thing was like filled. Like no moment seemed like wasted. It was just like every like almost line was just like, oh my gosh. And that's where
I
it's
love
like
that.
even trying to like kind of condense it and the ideas here, it's just I really want to emphasize that it's just like everything felt very like aligned and made sense and was also very oh, what's the word I'm looking for? Not like redeeming, but like understanding like, oh, this is kind of why some of my thought processes here,
Yeah.
or like just like very I guess maybe human is the word I'm looking for. And I think
Yeah.
that's again a highlight of like the group coaching experience is you got to realize like we're all going through different things and stuff. So
Yeah.
not a single moment of all any of the calls were like just everything was super impactful.
That's nice. I remember like watching you, you're always very engaged, which I think is great. Like, I mean, everyone has their own journey when they join these things. Like, and I know for you, you did have like a really strong desire to like really explore and be learn a process and like dig in. So that was definitely very evident. And I think it's evident of some of the results you've created since then, which we'll get into in a little bit. But what was it like also because you are actually one of our younger like attendees and clients inside of this experience. I mean, I would say we have always a wide range. You weren't the youngest this year, actually. We had
No.
somebody that was younger, but we tend to have more like mid 30s to upwards into like 60s, 70s, kind of more that range. How was it like being with that group of women, being coached alongside women ranging from 23 to 72 in our group? We had a really wide range in
Yeah.
our last experience.
Uh, I'd say first, it was honestly super inspiring. And it maybe that sounds a little interesting because you're also like hearing different like women and their struggles and knowing that it's like I think the a human in us wants to kind of reach the utopia and
Yeah.
understanding that like that might we might not never like ever reach that utopia, but it's also doesn't mean we don't stop like striving or adapting or like discovering like new loves, whether that love is for like some of the people was like, hey, I'm interested in getting into backpacking and just seeing like I know for me, like knowing that I'm like pretty young and I have a good body and stuff, and seeing these women who are like hurdling over whether like addressing like how to adapt their body or just like have been told certain things in their life and being able to like break past that.
Hmm.
It was just honestly so inspiring, and it felt like having a bunch of like really cool like older sisters in the room who were
Yeah.
there like to not only like share their wisdom and struggles, which just I think really brought a certain bond, but also like saying like, hey, like this is maybe how my life had started. This is where I'm at now. And you see that no one's path is linear. Surprise,
Yeah.
surprise. Even again, if the mind doesn't want to accept that, it
Yeah.
like it's just like you get to see like, oh, okay, I don't have to have everything like figured out, and I can still be
And
like,
what
I
does figured out even mean, you know? Yeah.
exactly. And yeah, so it's just like fantastic. And then just having especially I feel like for like on the intermediate trip and when we are actually on the backpacking trip, like
Yeah.
getting to talk with everyone and stuff, like just having so many people be like, just go for it. It's like
Yeah.
just honestly very like encouraging, and it's like a super supportive group and stuff.
Yeah, it was a really special group that we had last year. Every year we've had has actually been really special, but it was also so cool having like so many different walks of life in particular last year. Maybe let's talk a little bit about we've talked some about the backpacking trip, but let's dig into that a little bit more. So, as I mentioned earlier, you were signed up for our intermediate group trip in 2025, which was a really cool route that looped around. We called it like the Lakes Tour, but it was just basically each night we were hitting a different beautiful alpine lake, and we got to hike along some of the section of the JMT, and you guys got to see some iconic areas like Thousand Island Lake and the surrounding, and Adiza Lake, and it's just a really beautiful section. So maybe tell us, what was it like for you? I know this was like your longest backpacking trip, maybe most like elevation gain and stuff like that. What was that like, and what was that experience like for you?
Yeah. So I'd say again, like going into the trip, I was definitely still like a little like nervous and intimidated some, but I think kind of what we had highlighted previously around like the training going into it, like I felt confident and also supported by you, the team, guides, and essentially everyone on that trip. So I'd say in terms of like the trip itself, I honestly felt like great for most of it. And I think that was in part again to all the training and stuff. And
Yeah,
it definitely, not to be said that there weren't some like uphill slogs where you're just like, all right,
for
time for a
sure.
snack break, or let's
Yeah.
stop, pretend we're not, well, we were catching our breath one way or the other, checking the view and admiring the
Yeah.
scenery. And honestly, just like even like setting up, like finding the camp spot for like the group each night. And I'd say it went better than I could have ever imagined.
Yeah, I
And
was
I
gonna
think,
think, did you have any like hesitations around like this being that many nights? Like, or were you like have any concerns around that, the amount of nights it was?
yeah, I think I had a little bit of fear that I wouldn't actually like backpacking for that long.
Yeah.
Or another worry, and this could probably be one that other people relate to, was like that I wouldn't be able to sleep very well. And that's
Mm,
something for me, actually being in a group helped a lot in terms of
mm,
sleeping.
yeah.
I know some of like one of the nights, like we had set up our tents and like uh Julia, Karen, and I had like formed what we called our little cul-de-sac and stuff. So like
I love it.
um just like I think that helped like actually allowed me to sleep a lot better.
Yeah.
Just opposed to like the previous trips where it had just been like me and a friend, and it was just like we're both relatively inexperienced. So there was a certain like comfort level, like being like surrounded by others that
Yeah.
was a nice introduction. And then
Yeah, I
and
kind of like on that note, it's like I tell my clients a lot if they're ever considering doing something like a through hike, this is a good touch point with this many nights out to like get a feel for what a section of a through hike might be, because you're usually doing like 6 to 7 days maybe at a time before a resupply, typically. I mean, there can be longer sections than that, but it kind of gives you an idea. You're like, would I like this?
yeah,
And so I'm
exactly.
guessing like you found out you did like the longer trip.
Yeah. Yeah, and if honestly, I think my biggest regret on the trip sometimes is just like of like not taking the moments to like talk to people
Mm,
more, honestly.
yeah.
And I mean, not to say it
I was gonna say you talked
even
a
through
lot, so
my
I
I
didn't.
was going to say not to say I did talk a lot, but like sometimes, at least for me, it can I'll sometimes hike in the style of like death marching where you're
Oh,
kind of just
I
like
see. Yeah, yeah. You get in
and
your
just like
zone and kind of
kind of
focus.
get yeah, and you get antsy to like get to the next spot and stuff.
Yeah,
And I think by like chatting more with others, it kind of like then like let the trip pace be itself instead of like feeling like I had to like rush to like the next destination or like kind of it's like we're still moving fast, but it's still kind of like slowed it down in the moment,
yeah,
or like even like the stopping and enjoying like lunches and whatnot.
yeah.
Like,
That's
so
nice. Yeah, exactly. what did you think of that part of the Sierras? Like you had gotten to explore Yosemite, but this is like the backcountry a little bit more. What did
Yeah.
that bring up for you?
So, one thing I was surprised by was all of the wildflowers.
Oh
Um,
yeah, we had some
we
good wildflowers. Yeah.
we did, yeah, lots of Indian paintbrush and several others. So that was a fun experience because especially I think one of the joys I find with backpacking and hiking in general is to like take in the grand and awe scenery, but then
Yeah.
also like being able to stop and be like, those are some really pretty flowers and
Yeah,
whatnot.
micro and macro, you're like, ooh, yeah.
Exactly. And then probably the crown joy of the trip, which will come as no surprise, is all of the alpine lakes.
I was gonna say you had a very alpine dippy kind of group. That was like the
Yes,
most, I mean, we've had some groups that have done like one alpine dip, but you ladies were like every single lake you saw, you were like jumping in, and it was so funny. It was like I loved it. It was great.
it was. Yeah, that was definitely unexpected. And even something like I think I had like that was another like unknown going into the trip. Like I think on one of the other trips I had gone on, there was like a lake, but it's like I knew that was more of like a public lake. I mean, I guess
Yeah.
these are technically public too, but it wasn't like remote wilderness, alpine lake, cool
Yeah.
like dip, and yeah, every chance we got. Lunch, dinner, after
Are
dinner.
you like a ease your way? I forget where you just jumped right in, or do you ease your way in?
Uh, I think for like at the first lake, I kind of like dipped my toe in and then I was like, nah, this is gonna feel great. And then just like jumped in.
I'm
And
so opposite. I like get in and then I like ease my way in like section of body at a time. But
yeah,
yeah, you
I
guys were
embrace the plunge.
I love it. So thinking about that, like what would you say that was your favorite part about the backpacking trip, or what was your favorite part of the backpacking trip?
Uh, I'd say it probably there's two ties for that.
Okay.
One definitely all the alpine dips, and also with the alpine dips, as you mentioned, it wasn't a solo experience. There were lots of
Yes.
us like bounding in and
It was
stuff. So
basically everyone.
yeah, and so it kind of felt like I don't want to use the word spa day because that it seems almost too like
Too luxurious.
luxury. I mean, it was very luxury out there, but it kind of just felt like a fun like girls like
Yeah.
beach day, like especially when we went up to like Iceberg Lake. I remember like we did
Yeah,
this
that's
like
a fun
long
spot.
kind of slog up to it, and then you got to like kind of like the top where like the elevation peaked out, but then it was like this like open like valley and except for you could see like the mountain in the distance and
Yeah.
you just felt like it very felt in that moment like I was going on a pilgrimage and
Yeah.
then like getting to the lake and it was just like oh my gosh this is
I felt
great.
that too. I was like, I have been here before, but I didn't, it was a long time ago. And I was like, oh man, am I taking them on like a slog to something that's not epic and I'm just remembering it incorrectly? But we got up there and I was like, yes, okay. The
Yeah,
juice, the juice is worth the squeeze. Like, and you all were so great about it. We were all like, it's still like, we're still not there yet.
yeah, we're like come on, especially because you couldn't see it
Yeah.
until like you were
The
right
very
up on
end. Yeah.
it. So that was a lot
That
of
was the
fun. So yes,
coolest one too.
oh yeah, definitely earned the name
Yes.
Iceberg.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd say yeah, just I feel like all the girls' time at the water was a
Yeah.
lot of fun. And then to like kind of round out there were a lot of small moments too throughout the day, whether we were pausing to like take a photo together or like share
Yeah.
laughs or smiles about something, but then kind of ending the day after everyone had got to their tent set up, had done our alpine dip, and just like eating dinner like in the circle
Yeah.
talking about like honestly whatever or like even working on I think it was like a crossword we did one of the nights and then another like just sharing like our like hopes and dreams like it just
Yeah.
like while eating a
Nice.
meal together it's just like a very um I don't know, other,
It's a
not,
nice experience.
yeah.
Like we try to always put together like a camp, we call it like a camp kitchen area, but it's basically where we can all like eat together. And it's, yeah, it's lovely. I love it too. But what about, I'm curious just to know what, if you can remember, your favorite camp spot was.
Uh, yes, I can definitely remember mine was the Thousand Island lake
It's a
area.
beautiful spot.
And I remember specifically that night setting an alarm for like 1 a.m. To
Mm.
make sure I looked at the stars and stuff and just like again, the after going on our alpine dips, enjoying dinner, being tucked away in the sleeping bag, and then like just getting out and sitting on like it was a pretty like like smooth rocky
Yeah, we had a
area
rocky camp that night.
and just like laying back on the rocks and just like looking at the Milky Way and stuff. Just especially because I live in an area where I can see like some stars, but the Milky Way really isn't visible. And just seeing like the whole night sky is lit up just
Yeah. I'm
was
so impressed you
definitely a
did that.
highlight.
I always want to do that every single night that I'm out there, but then the struggle to wake up from my sleep is real. But whenever I have to pee, I always try to do it when the pee wakes me up.
And that was nice. It was kind of like a 2 for 1 because I didn't
Yeah.
have to go to the
You're like, I'm gonna
bathroom.
knock this off.
And then it honestly it felt even extra lucky because I think it was during the time when like the Parasids,
Oh
I think it's
yeah,
said that
the
correctly,
meteor
the meteor
shower.
shower.
Yeah,
So I think I honestly got into the double digits that night in terms
that's
of shooting
awesome.
stars and stuff. So it's just like, oh my gosh, I feel, yeah, just felt so lucky to be able
Yeah.
to be out there and experience that.
I love that. I was actually did a conversation with Sunny too, which I don't know if you remember her, but she was in the beginner group and I asked her what her favorite moment was and she mentioned like opening up her tent, like seeing the stars and stuff like that too. So, yeah, it's like really unique. I remember the first time I noticed the Milky Way out in the Sierras and I was like, "Holy crap, this is beautiful." Like you just don't see it in your cities and
Yeah.
towns. Yeah. It's
Exactly. And then just like having it like rimmed, like the sky rimmed by like the mountains and like the Thousand Island had like its distinct like kind of like peak almost and
yeah.
like seeing that transition like we hiked up like once we kind of got to that area you could see it in like the daylight and then like as dust fully settled and then you
Yeah.
honestly the Milky Way beam was like right to like literally the right of it so it's just like watching
Wow.
just like a time
Epic.
lapse almost of it.
So cool. So, okay, now let's kind of fast forward a little bit. So we went on the trip, we finished up the program with our like phase 3 possibilities. And, it's been like, I don't know, 6-ish months, I guess, since then. So now that some time has passed since the program has ended, maybe let's talk a little bit about what life has looked for you on the other side of this experience. And one of the things, like you and I talked about during your coaching, was the idea of you potentially like exploring the idea of stepping away from work or just reimagining what work could be like. It wasn't necessarily like you were decided on that. But even just exploring the possibility of maybe taking extended time off, maybe focusing on an adventure or like doing some of the things you really wanted to do. And I know from catching up with you recently that you actually have some really exciting plans coming up this summer. So maybe do you want to share a little bit about what you have planned?
Yes. So the big reveal is that I scored a permit to hike the JMT. So get to go back. I plan on hitting Thousand Islands again.
Lovely.
Um,
And that was
but
like one of your ideas that kind of like you wrote down during the possibility part, right? Because
yeah,
I remember us talking
yes.
about it a little bit.
Yeah, because kind of what you're saying with like either like stepping away from work or just like kind of figuring like testing the waters on like what's out there, whether that's longer trails like the Camino,
Yeah.
and just like again, it there's a lot of possibilities, and I think the JMT offered a perfect way to kind of like step in and like also it's still a big step, but it's also like a bite-sized step to where it's
Yeah.
like I can test like what it's
Yeah.
like
Being
to
away for
be
like
able
20
to,
days. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And just like, especially because some of the other like possibilities on the list were doing some like other like longer through hikes, like I said, maybe like the Camino or like, I don't know, trekking around Japan or like other places and kind of more the extended time
Yeah.
past just like the normal like week-long vacation or whatnot. And I think the JMT gives a great way to kind of like one, it gives a lot of like personal like development. Like just I had never like applied for a permit before. So even just
Yeah.
like planning, like doing that and just like the planning stages of it for the trip and kind of like although it's something that other people have done, so it's like I have guidelines I can work off of and whatnot, but also still make it very much like my own trip. But it's
Yeah.
kind of like you said, it's a way for like, especially for someone like myself who can get like very quickly in the overwhelm, it
Yeah.
gives a nice like step in like the exploring the possibilities.
Yeah, definitely.
So I'm yeah, very pumped. I'm very curious what 3 weeks away is going to be like because the longest I had been away from home besides like college or whatever was like 2 weeks in New Zealand, and that
Yeah.
was a whirlwind of a trip and definitely very different. And I'm really excited to just like kind of live with the cadence of like the sun. So kind
Yeah.
of rise in the sunlight, set or sleep in the evening, and just like kind of really slow down, like both slow down and quickly hike the pace of life.
Yeah.
And just like embrace like when I have a friend from actually the coaching experience last year who's joining me for like the first 10 days. So get to experience it with like a buddy. And
Yeah.
then the rest of it, I'm sure, of course, we'll be meeting like people on the trail, but also like give time to
Potentially
really,
solo. Yeah.
yeah. And I think that's like, especially when thinking about what other like next steps might be and stuff to like kind of get comfortable of what solo me feels like outside of like the status quo daily
Yeah.
rhythms and how I might like it. Or even if I end up being like, you know what, like we can cross off any hopes of, I don't, not that I necessarily
Or,
aspire to
yeah,
like the
just like
PCT,
seeing what
like,
comes up for you in
yeah.
that whole process is interesting to like uncover. And I love that you're doing that. I think I also love that you're getting to go start this with somebody else too that you know. Like that's going to be a fun entry into this. And you're not the only one also from the group who's
No, yeah,
doing
and
the
that's
JMT this year, which is funny. Like you
yeah,
guys all started talking about it and then you were like, yeah, let like you kind of got hyped on it.
exactly. And that's honestly, that's even been like inspiring because I before I even started like planning for the permit, I had started to plan with the permit and then started like trying to connect a lot of other like pieces in life with it, like hinging a lot of other decisions of like tied in with this trip and stuff. And
Yeah.
I was able to like turn back to the group and be like, hey, like, especially I think coming off of Airy, like it's such like I'd say a life-changing experience that it can be like tough getting back into like the daily rhythm, even if you have like plans like to pursue
Yeah.
something else. Like there's still like a transition stage and
Yeah.
figuring out like how to navigate that and just like the feelings that arise with that and being able to talk about that with others. And then also like again, being able to be like, hey, like, how about you just like let the JMT trip be a trip also instead of like trying to like hinge like so many things on it and stuff. So
Yeah.
that's I'd say an unexpected joy from the trip is that I can like still lean on those people to like
Mm.
kind of like, hey, this is what I'm dealing with. Like Tell me what you got. Give me your wisdom,
Yeah.
or just
You
like
guys
makes.
became a pretty close-knit group, I feel like. And you guys, I think Carrie like spearheaded a ongoing like monthly
Yep.
touch base or something with everyone.
Yep. Yeah, we try and talk
Yeah.
monthly. The holidays are a little rough, but we
Yeah.
also have like a group chat that's always going. And even like a fun joy with that is with the JMT. I was like, I know I want to like upgrade my like trail shoes. Which
Yeah.
shoes do I want to get? And I like threw out that I was interested in like these Topo athletic shoes. And I was like, does anyone have any experience with these? And I got all sorts of like fun replies, like experiences. And it was honestly so like it's such a fun time just even geeking out over a pair of like hiking shoes and stuff,
Yeah.
like just very much forming that community. So like both through
Yeah.
like the highs and the lows. And I think it helped make me a better person and also again not get stuck in like the mind drama too much.
I'm so excited to hear more about how your JMT adventures go too. And also, like, ironically, you'll probably be out there around the similar time that we'll be out on our Adventurous Reinvention Experience 2026 groups. We'll be out there. So I have this like fantasy of accidentally running into Marissa out on the trail, but we'll see. If not,
No,
I'm at least hoping if she sends me her schedule, I can be a trail angel and like give her some good food or something if she needs it. So we'll see how that works out when we get there, but that'll
I
be fun.
something will happen for
Even
sure.
just knowing we're looking at the same mountains, I'll just like relish it. Oh, Marissa's out here looking at the mountain.
I
So
like to joke that since I'll most likely be wearing like the same shirt I wore last year, which is a
the
very bold
funky,
and
yeah.
bright, like rainbow disco leopard shirt, that you'll like see something like over the mountain
I'm like,
pass,
that's
see me coming,
her.
be like, oh my gosh, there she is. And I'll come like running.
Yeah, because you're starting at Cottonwood Pass or
Yeah.
Lakes. Yeah. Um,
Cottonwood Pass. Again,
and going
uh,
northbound.
yeah, going northbound. And part of that was obviously due to like lotteries and stuff, but also starting out like being aware of like the elevation and starting out higher and like planning, like giving myself a little bit of time before trying to summit like Mount Whitney and stuff, which is again
Yeah.
another even like
That's gonna be
Marissa
so
like
fun.
5 years ago would have never comprehended that to even like put on the list at all that I'd be like at least attempting to summit it, whether or not anything plays impact, but just like doing that, like it's
Yeah,
just
that's
you
crazy.
never know where life takes you.
I love it. Well, okay, we're getting towards the end of our time here. So one thing I like to do is I like to do some fun rapid fire questions, just a way for people to get to know you a little bit better. And I don't know, sometimes it can come up with some interesting conversations. So let's start off with the go-to one I usually do is like, what's your go-to trail snack?
Yeah, so mine would be haichu, the candy, kind of
Okay.
similar texture to like Laffy Taffy or Tootsie Roll, but 10 times better flavor. They
Yeah,
fit in like just about any pocket. So whenever you see me on the trail,
you
just be
will
like,
have
yo,
high too.
Marissa, can I have a high chew? And
I
I'll
wonder if
from
you'll
like
get
the
sick of them
zippers.
on the JMT.
Yeah, who knows? I'll probably, yeah, once I'm done, I'll be like, oh, thank goodness I'm through my
No more
supply.
high juice. We'll see. I mean, I never got sick of Sour Patch Kids, so you might not. So, if you could wake up in your tent anywhere tomorrow morning, where would it be?
So funny enough, I have two answers for that. One of
Okay.
them, which we deeply discussed, which was the Thousand Islands. Maybe not currently like right now, because I think it's probably buried
Yeah,
underneath
that's
snow.
true.
But
You're the only person who's thought about that question from a seasonal, in this exact moment of March 17th. Like, that's so funny.
yeah,
I love
so
that.
if we pretend that it's like non-snow and decently, it's never going to be warm, but decently warm to be able to like enjoy the
Yes.
stars
I'm
and
sure it
wake up.
would be beautiful right now, but yeah, very
Yeah.
cold.
and enjoy an alpenglow. Funny enough, my other answer is not a particular like precise location, but would be Iceland, but also maybe not
Mm.
right now because I don't know what the weather is like. But that's
Like anything in particular, any place in particular in Iceland, or you have you been?
I have not been yet.
Okay, so
It's
just
one of my
dreaming of
big
it. Yeah,
destinations for my next birthday. That's
I
where
love
I
it.
really want to go. So just knowing
Amazing.
that there's so much to see there, I'm like, oh yeah, whether
Yeah.
it's in front of a volcano there or
Pop
what.
me in Iceland. I don't care.
Exactly.
Um, okay, what's one small luxury item that you always bring backpacking?
So this is actually a new one and has not been backpacking tested, but has
Okay.
been Joshua Tree camping tested.
Okay.
And that is one of the little inflatable pillows.
Oh,
I
nice.
got one for free when I got my quilt last year, and I didn't bring it on our trip.
Yeah.
And since I wasn't backpacking for Joshua Tree and stuff, I was like, you know what? I can fit that in my luggage. It's super tiny. And honestly, it was so nice having like
Yeah.
the neck and head support. So,
Yeah.
uh, besides that, I kind of question like, I'm like, I toe the line of what's a luxury item and what do I consider a need? So
Yeah,
like
that's true. Yeah.
like face wipes, body wipes, like that's a need for me.
I know it's like with Carrie, I feel like hers was mouthwash,
Yeah,
like,
it's like it
but for
might be a
her it was a
luxury,
need. It seemed like she needed that. But yeah, that's so true. It's in the eye of the beholder. Yeah, I get
but
that.
I figured the pillow is definitely
That's a
probably
good
one of the
answer.
more
Especially,
controversial luxury items.
yeah, like especially when you come from learning from me, I will always tell you guys it's an optional item because you can use if you want to shave weight, it's like a way you can like just reuse other things that you already have with you. But like a lot of our clients do like to bring a pillow for that exact reason. And I might even be like converting into that kind of person soon because I'm just noticing, yeah, like sleep is harder in the backcountry now in my like late 30s. So I might test it out and see what I like.
You
So
should. And I was just going to say real quick, the other thing is I feel like it's also become a necessity because I usually use up my other like layers. So like
yeah,
my jacket and stuff is usually on me, at
yeah,
least in
like that's a
more high
problem if you have
alpine.
nothing to use as stuffing for your pillow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it'd be a sad pillow.
Would be a really sad pillow. I sometimes just prop my backpack underneath my sleeping pad so I have elevation, but that's not
Mm.
always the same comfort level. But okay, what's the first thing that you like to do when you get to your camp for the day?
Definitely the classic set up the tent.
Yeah.
So
I like to
yeah,
do my chores. I like getting my chores done so I can like enjoy the area.
exactly. Getting
Yeah.
everything, yeah, set up and then can run to another alpine lake or just
Yeah.
like hang around camp and not have like know that everything's like ready and set is very pleasing to me.
Yeah, I agree. And then last question, what moment on the trail makes you feel the most alive?
Yeah, I'd say this I kind of hit on earlier, but I think it's just stopping to take in the views and again, like whether it's like the smallest like little wildflower to the grandest mountain, I think just like that in itself brings just a feeling of like aliveness mixed with awe and just being like knowing that like, hey, I somehow through my 2 feet, plane, bus, whatever, like all the different ways I had to get out here, like
Yeah.
made it out here and get to like enjoy this view. And I just feel like very like blessed to get to experience that and just like the serenity, peace, and awe that it brings.
Yeah, I love that. And the Eastern Sierras are full of moments like that, but so many other areas too in the world. It's just like stopping to take in any view and being present with it is like so
Yeah.
nice.
And it can even be just like, wow, that's like a really cool rock. And that might in the moment be super
Yeah.
exciting. Like it
Yeah.
doesn't even, yeah, like
No, I do.
take
I
a,
sometimes you catch a wildflower and you're like, "Oh my gosh, this is such a cool plant." Like, what is going on with this plant? Like, I feel that way all the time. I love
exactly.
Okay, Marissa, before we officially close things up for this interview, I have just one final question. What kind of woman do you think would really thrive inside of a container like the Adventurous Reinvention Experience?
So my first answer would definitely be anyone, especially if you love the outdoors, or even if you're outdoor curious. And I'd say the deeper answer is those looking at their daily life and wondering what's more, but like in a way that just like nature is very healing and doesn't like will only ask what you're like willing to give. So you don't have to like do step into this thinking it's going to be like a super grand change, or you can like what how I stepped into it. It can also be like the little moments of, hey, like I'm interested in changing this part of my life and I want like the strength and support and accountability of how to do that. And um, I think, as you always said, the mountains have so much to teach us, whether that's with like highs and lows. And therefore, I think anyone who's kind of just like maybe has a little itch or a curiosity or just wants to break the status quo in their life.
Yeah, amazing. Marissa, thank you so much for being here and sharing your story with us. I know because we were talking about this before we officially started that you might be starting a little place where people can follow along on your JMT journey. Maybe what are you thinking of starting again?
Yeah, so again, kind of a way to maybe be a bit more intentional with the trail. I'm hoping to start a Substack kind of JMT trail diary so you can get inside my mind and my hike, and also probably will have like fun, like whether it's gearless and raving about a headlamp or a neck pillow, just kind of allowing people to follow along with the adventure and hopefully inspire others to dream big and know that less than 6 years ago, I was going on my first trip. So definitely stay tuned.
I love that. Marissa and I were talking like she hasn't officially created it, but hopefully by the time this airs, we'll have like a link to a page where you can sign up to get notified when she officially gets it started. And I think you're starting in July sometime,
Yep.
correct?
And I'll definitely probably have like some information, maybe a fun article, like just about like the planning process or
Yeah.
whatever, out before then. But definitely you'll get probably at least like 19 to 21 days worth of posts. So
I love following things like that. So we'll for sure link it in the show notes so that way people can follow along. I know like everyone from our ARE group last year will definitely be on, pins and needles like wanting to get updates from you. So
and there will
thank you.
definitely be lots of photos too,
Oh
because I love
yes.
taking photos of all the views that we were just talking
And all
about.
the flowers.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much again, Marissa, for your time and for being here. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in today. And we'll talk to you next time. Bye. Hey, I wanted to thank you real quick for tuning into the show and listening all the way to the end. If you love this episode and you want deeper support in becoming a safe, confident, and self-sufficient hiker and backpacker, then head over to shedreamsofalpine.com/waitlist to learn more about our Backpacking Badass coaching program, where I teach you absolutely everything you need to know to be self-reliant on the trails and stop waiting around on others for the adventure invite. So I'd love to help you more in your journey of stepping into your adventurous identity, and that program is the absolute best place for us to start working together. So again, that's shedreamsofalpine.com/waitlist, and you can learn all about it there. So that's it for today, folks. I hope you get to spend some time outside this week, and I'll be back very soon with a brand new episode. Bye.